The death of Fidel Castro. He passed on Friday. He ruled Cuba by force and by cult of personality for nearly 50 years. His death, of course, was greeted with rejoicing by the thousands who fled his island prison. But on the academic left, the response was more muted, even bittersweet. Some even seemed to mourn him. Now, what could you possibly say that's positive about a man like Fidel Castro? Joining us now to tell us is Rene de la Parraja, a professor at Canisius College. Professor, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. So I have heard many on the left say, well, he raised literacy rates and he trained a bunch of doctors. But from my perspective as an American, as a human, this is a guy who imprisoned people who criticized him and wouldn't allow his citizens to leave the country, thereby turning the entire island into a prison. So why would literacy rates mean anything in the face of human rights abuses like that?
Well, now, let me correct you briefly, Tucker. Now Cubans can leave anytime they want the island. They just have to find a country that will receive them with visas. Now, the burden is on the other side there.
Okay, I mean for the past 50 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, you want to go at the earlier period.
Flee the island. Right, yeah, for the 50 years.
Yeah.
That period.
Put yourself in the place of the Cuban government. They spend a lot of money educating a doctor. And then when he's ready to practice, well, I'll just go to the U.S. and earn those high salaries there. So you can see this attempt to restrict. There were some economic reasons for that. It was not just that it was
come on, Professor. Why are you making? Look, that's monstrous. He put people in prison for criticizing him. He sent, as you know, a lot of his doctors, an awful lot, to places like Angola and Venezuela to help other revolutions in progress. There's no excuse for that. And here's my meta question: why does the left make excuses for a monster like Fidel Castro? Why? Because he's become a symbol, not just in Cuba, but throughout the world there for people who, believe it or not, are seeking freedom, are seeking opportunities. Remember, he abolished segregation in Cuba. Nobody mentions that there. He supported nationalist movements across the world there in an age where there were colonies and empires. So that made him very attractive to a lot of people. Now, for me, it's difficult to say this there because I'm really not the extreme left. All my life, I've been caught between those who hate Castro and those who worship him. And all my life, I've been trying to kind of bring a little bit of the Cuban people together there. So it doesn't hurt anything to recognize. Yes, but there's some figures, Professor, who are just clarifying. Again, if you put dissidents in prison, if people are afraid to speak your name in public, if your secret police keeps order, as his did, I don't think any of those facts are up for dispute. How could anything about him be good? How could anything about him be good?
You're forgetting the factor that the United States has been trying to overthrow Castro since August of 1959. So this has made the government very paranoid there. We try to assassinate him. We try to do all these horrible things to him. And so this allowed him to tap into nationalism there. So that you keep that in mind there. It's the U.S. government behind all this.
Right, of course. So basically what he tapped into was international hatred of the United States. And you know the truth, which is nobody would defend Castro if he didn't hate the United States, if he didn't set himself up in opposition to the U.S. If he was pro-U.S., you would not defend him. But leaving that aside,
the United States tried to assassinate him, Tucker. I mean, how can you, they try to kill him there. They try to overthrow him like they had done in Guatemala in 1954. So the survival instincts kicked in there, and he had to find allies who will help him.
No, but that is silly. Guatemala didn't, as you know, become a totalitarian dictatorship. Cuba did, and it served his interests and not the interests of the people on the island. Their health care survey, would you go there for a bypass? No, of course not.
Well, people do fly to Cuba for operations because it's cheaper there. Let me inform you, they go from the Dominican Republic. They go from different parts of Latin America because they have such great health service. We just made our arrangements here with the Roswell Cancer Institute. They have all this new discoveries, a vaccine for lung cancer. We have not been able to develop that there. So the investments in medicine
they had full employment after Weimar, but that's really kind of not the point. I mean, look, if you allowed everyone in Cuba who wanted to leave, over the last 50 years,
they can leave right now, but they have to find a country that will receive them.
That's, as you know, a recent development. People risked their lives and in many cases died to flee. Does that not tell you something? Why is it only people in sinecures like yours, affluent, protected people in Western countries where they can speak their minds, who defend this guy? I've never met anybody who fled from Cuba who would defend him.
Because, well, the ones who have fled for a number of reasons, sometimes for personal reasons. They left their wives behind. They want to start a new life with a new wife, forget about the old family. You don't hear about that in the media there. And nationalism, the Cuban nationalism,
so you're saying that people who fled Castro were abandoning their families?
Some of them,
because
some
they
of
had
them
like
there.
a girlfriend.
Some want to begin a new life there. Some of them were so there's not this huge system of political oppression that is very popular among certain sectors there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of popular participation in Cuba there. I mean, you're only seeing one. I'm glad you have me a few minutes there to hear some of these things. There's another side to the picture there, and I think your viewers have a right to hear that there. It's not this brutal regime.
They've been hearing it for decades.
The Cold War is over. The Cold War has been over for 20 years.
It's not about the Cold War. It's about the impulse on the left to defend totalitarianism. And it makes me nervous as an American because these are my fellow citizens who claim to value free speech, and yet they defend this guy. So it just tells you everything about how they really feel.
The more we reach out to Cuba, the more they'll open up there. They've been opening up some other communications, more movements there. And the more we attack them, the more they close in there. So I know this is unpopular for some people.
I didn't ask the obvious question, Professor, which is, Cuba's so great, why didn't you move there? Why are you in a tenured profession in the United States? But unfortunately, we're out of time. I guess the answer is obvious. It's a hellhole, and no one would want to move there. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Well, I disagree with you. Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, you're still here, so obviously you don't.